Hello curious people, my name is Sarah and I'm an artist and illustrator based in Melbourne, Australia. So I had a lot of questions after posting my previous sticker tutorial video, and a lot of people were curious about the process for designing and laying out my sticker sheets and how I set up the cut files for those a bit more in depth. So I figured we'd go through the process today. I'm going to design a silly little new sticker sheet. So what we'll be covering is the art and design process, my method for setting up the sticker sheets in Photoshop before we even move over to any cutting software, setting up the cut lines and preparing the file in the Silhouette Studio, proofing and testing the sticker sheet, and we're going to also go over a Q&A during the print and cut at the end of this video and answer some questions that weren't addressed in my previous sticker tutorial video. I won't go over the materials in depth that I'm using today, but if you're curious about anything that I use in this video, you can find all of that information in my recent sticker tutorial video, how to make awesome waterproof stickers, and I'll link that down in the description for you. But give that a watch, it's got all of the basics of information and everything I've used, including links to all of the materials if that's something that you need. So the sticker sheet I'm designing today is just a silly little thing. I had this idea, I wanted to make this little tiny knights and tiny castles sticker sheet. I've ended up titling it Tiny Camelot Spoilers, but the idea was just to draw some little chibi knights and some little chibi looking castle buildings and just make a little sticker sheet out of it. So that's what you'll see me drawing here. I actually work on a very narrow, sort of long canvas. This is actually the kind of file template I use for designing my washi tapes, and I use this for designing the sticker sheets, mostly just because this process came about by accident. So I originally designed a series of washi tapes for my artist alley table, and when I designed those washi tapes, I ended up thinking, oh, you know, this will probably make a pretty easy way to get jump started into making sticker sheets. So I took all of the designs out of that and formatted them into sticker sheets. And that process ended up working quite well for me. So I sort of just decided when I want to design something really small and simple and restrict myself to make sure that the items are all sort of a similar scale and size, I'll do so on the washi tape template. So I basically just go straight in with like a bold ink pen digitally. Usually what happens is the first couple of things that I draw out aren't very good because I'm not usually quite warmed up at this point, and I usually end up redrawing them or replacing them later, or just not including them. And I'll basically go until I've designed somewhere between 10 and 20 items along the length of this file. The more elements you draw, obviously the more flexibility you have. I do like to add other small geometrical elements when I'm at the arranging stage, but we'll get to that when we jump over to Photoshop later. It's a very haphazard design process. This is what works for me. You can design your stickers in any software you like with any tools that you like. You can hand draw them on paper. You can draw them digitally on Procreate on your iPad or with a non-screen based tablet at your PC. Just make sure that when you're done, everything is saved in some sort of editable layer format like a PSD or as like a flat transparent PNG, which is what I prefer to use. This is what my folder looks like when I'm ready to move over to Photoshop. So I've saved them all as separate PNGs, and I've got a file set up that uses my template for my sticker sheets. I will include a copy of this as a download that you can use. You would be able to open this in other software that supports PSDs, but if you do open it in Photoshop, you will be able to see these guidelines I've got set up on the side. Now the actual dimensions of my sticker sheets are 16 by 9 centimeters, and you'll see some conversions here. Photoshop can switch between different sizing systems, so you can see it's got centimeters, millimeters, inches, pixels, all that good stuff. You'll want to make sure that your file is at least 300 dpi, and in this case my canvas is actually slightly bigger than 9 by 16 because I want some additional bleed on the edge of my sticker sheet. Now bleed is just a fancy term meaning for area of your design that's intended to be cut off, that may or may not be slightly misaligned during the cut process. In this case, the Cameo thread that I use feel like it has about a 1mm error sort of width when it's at its worst, and meaning that if you don't have at least an additional millimeter for your critical elements, they may get off cut pretty badly. So all you want to do is grab all of your files and just drag and drop them straight into Photoshop. In my case, I drag and drop off to the side of the canvas because dropping off to the side of the canvas lets it drop them all in as smart objects, and it will automatically transform them for me so I don't have to do anything. And you'll see on the right hand side of the layers panel, you'll see this little icon here tells us that the object is in a smart object mode, which essentially means that Photoshop is keeping a copy of this image in memory so that when we make modifications to it, it's not modifying the original file, and therefore we can perform multiple manipulations on the transform that won't affect the quality until we export the final version of the file. meaning there won't be a loss of quality over the process of fiddling with laying out the sticker sheet. And I find that this is good because I could move a lot of back and forth across the design, changing the size and changing the layout a lot as I go. Now, you probably will find smart objects in some of the other software available to you. Something like Clip Studio, I think, also has smart objects. I don't think Procreate has that kind of functionality, but I haven't used Procreate much in a while now, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But something like Affinity Photo or Clip Studio or even GIMP is likely to have the ability to do something like this, and it will make your life a little bit easier and give you a cleaner, less blurry looking finished result for your sticker sheets. So first things first is I'll just start resizing all of the smart objects that have been dropped in and trying to get things to the approximate scale that I want for the finished sheet. You can make your stickers on your sticker sheet whatever size you want. They can be giant stickers or they can be tiny stickers. Obviously, the more tiny stickers you have on a sheet, the longer it's going to take to cut. Now, one of the other fun features of this template file I set up for myself is that everything that I drop under this folder on the right-hand side, the stickers folder, has a special set of Photoshop layer properties applied to it called a stroke. And what this does is it takes the images within that folder and it applies a little contour border to all of them there. And because I have this file set up to be the exact dimensions of the actual printed file that I want to end up with, when I set the stroke border to 20 pixels, it creates an exactly 2mm stroke border around all of the stickers. So I can essentially preview where all of my cut lines will sit for all of my stickers. I also include a second stroke border that is slightly larger and not in a white color, just something to kind of offset that to make it look like an imaginary cut line to help me visualize it, especially if I'm working on a light background and I don't want to set a dark background that interferes with my ability to visualize the colors of the sticker sheet. Again, I will include this template file, the PSD, as a free download that you can use, and you'll be able to toggle these on and off to preview them while you're working and laying out your sticker sheets in this file. Another cool thing to note in Photoshop is I actually have this auto select layer toggle enabled for the move tool. And what this does is it lets me click on any object directly with the mouse and then it will automatically select the layer that I have targeted. One thing to additionally note when using this mode is that you probably want to lock any of your background layers or anything you don't accidentally want to drag, because if you misclick, it's going to get really frustrating when you start accidentally dragging your background layer around instead of your stickers and misaligning everything. Here I'm just adding some extra filler elements to the sticker sheet. I like to add lots of little stars or other cute small stickers to fill in the spaces. At this point, I'm probably quite close to being done laying this out. So when we are actually finished with this sticker sheet, what we'll want to do is export two separate PNGs from this file. So the first thing I export is the background of the sticker sheet. The background is going to include like the background layer of colors, but it's also going to include any headers and footers and all of the text, but it won't include any of the stickers. So I'll disable the visibility of all of the sticker layers until all that remains is only the background elements. I'll export another PNG, and this time what I will do is I will turn off all the background layers and turn on only the sticker layers. And in this case, I will also make sure to turn off the secondary stroke, the one that adds the slightly darker color around the white borders, but I'll leave the white borders on, as this also further simplifies my cutting for Silhouette Studio. You can export them without the white border and set the cut lines up manually in Silhouette Studio, and I'll demonstrate that as well. But in my case, this works for me as like a drag and drop super fast for getting to the print and cut stage. So I'll export the two files, again, the background and just the transparent stickers with their white borders only and nothing else. And I know PNGs aren't in the CMYK format. I have found, however, that as long as I don't have any obscene colors that are extremely difficult to print in CMYK, then Silhouette Studio handles this translation fine when sending this straight through to my printer. And at this stage, all we really do is we drag and drop in the two separate files that we exported. One is the background and the other is the stickers. And these are pretty easy to line up with each other. You just sort of drag the stickers over the background layer and it should sort of look how you were previously visualizing it in Photoshop, except now what you will see is that there will be a border automatically generated around the white area of your stickers in Silhouette Studio, basically eliminating the need to set up any manual cut lines for the actual kiss cut of the stickers. The only cut line we really have have to create now is that of the die cut of the sticker sheet, the actual rectangular border shape. What I just use is the rounded corner rectangle tool, and I just click and drag, doesn't matter what size. And then I use the inputs in the top left to specify the exact dimensions that I want. In this case, it's 9 centimeters by 16 centimeters. And when I'm happy with it, I just drag it and overlay it over the sticker sheet, making sure that the background then overflows by an even amount on every side. And this is what we set up the bleed for, is we're intending to cut this off. Anything outside this rectangle area is not intended to be part of the sticker sheet, and just to help keep the finished result looking clean, especially if you have a colored background. You don't want, if there's like a slight miscut, to end up with white edges on the side of your sticker sheet or something. Now in my case, I actually exported an extra copy of the stickers with an additional visualized border, and I'm using this to print a paper test copy. So let's send a paper test off to print. I'm going to just pop in a sheet of 160 GSM plain white paper in A4 size and just print that out, and I will use that to also run a die cut just down to the external shape of the sheet so that I can see how this might look in a finished result. When it comes out, I just pop it straight onto the cutting mat and send it through with my cut settings that I have configured for 160 GSM. This will vary for you based on the type of cutting machine you're using, but the settings are here if you were interested. Cutting this out just gives me a good overview of any mistakes that I might have made or anything I'm not happy with, but overall it's looking way cuter than I thought it would. So I'll go and prepare the rest of the file for print, where I will have 3 copies of the sticker sheet laid out on the one sheet. To do that, I just make sure that my elements are grouped together using Ctrl-G, which binds them all together, meaning that if I go to drag one around, it'll drag everything together and not separate them by accident. And then I just copy-paste Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V until I have 3 of them in total, and I line them up on the A4 page, making sure not to overlap with the checkered areas in the corner close to the registration marks, because any printed matter that overlaps with those areas will potentially interfere with its ability to read the registration marks. And in my case, my cutting machine is slightly fussier about the bottom right area of my cut areas for the registration marks, so I just try to keep my elements as far towards the top left as possible for the best cut accuracy. Let's talk about some other ways that you can set up your cut lines in Silhouette Studio. If you drag and drop your stickers in and you don't have a white border, the first option that I would use to create the kind of kiss cuts that you would have just seen, I use the offset tool in Silhouette Studio, and what this does is it takes an existing cut line or shape and it just offsets that with another contour, much like the stroke we just saw in Photoshop. And the default size for this is 2mm, which is the size that I use, but you can configure that on the little panel that pops out when you create an offset. The other major tool in Silhouette Studio that I use for this, it has like a little butterfly shaped icon, and I think it's called the trace panel. And when you use this tool, you just click and drag an area over what you want to create cut lines for. And when you release the mouse, you'll see it highlights everything in a big bright yellow, and there's a panel on the right hand side you can use to configure the settings for it. You mostly just want to adjust the threshold of this until you get what looks like a reasonably solid coverage. It doesn't have to be completely solid, but it has to have no gaps in the exterior edges of your shapes. And when that looks sort of okay, you just want to hit trace outer edge, and this will create the cut lines that are bound tightly to the shape of your design in like non-white areas. And then you would just take the cut lines that this generates and then apply the offset you just saw before to these as well. Alright, so I'm going to send off my sticker sheet to print, and while it's printing and I'm setting up the laminates and all that other good stuff, I wanted to go over a few questions that were submitted on Instagram and on the other YouTube video. Let's start with some questions from Instagram. We had someone ask, how do you laminate the stickers without bubbles? So I kind of covered this in my previous video, but I think there are a few factors involved when trying to avoid getting bubbles under your laminates on your stickers. The first obviously is kind of the method that you apply it in. I will demonstrate again in this video how I apply my laminates, but making sure that you get the beginning step of laying down the laminate where it first starts to adhere with not too much tension and getting it on straight will really help when applying the rest of the sheet as you pull down with the squeegee. The other thing I've found is that using a good quality laminate makes a big difference. So if it's not something that applies smoothly, then you're more likely to have bubbles. So in my case, my holographic laminates are a lot more fussy. The quality laminate definitely can affect that. Something you might notice is if you leave your stickers long enough after you laminate them, some of those bubbles may actually dissipate on their own naturally after about 24 hours. I had 2 other questions that were kind of similar. One person asked if I could cover the best printers and sticker paper types, and someone else asked, do you need a special printer for making stickers? So the answer is not really. You can use kind of any printer that you want, but in my case, I'm using a dye-based inkjet printer. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is the best kind of printer to use. It is, however, the most commonly available and the most affordable type of printer you can use for high quality looking print results. But the dye-based inks are not very durable, and you will have to laminate them to make sure that they're actually waterproof and have some UV resistance. But even once they're laminated, they are still not fully waterproof. They may still suffer in extremely humid environments and will not be dishwasher safe. So another question that I got asked was, can you use non-waterproof sticker paper with a laminate, and will that make them waterproof and make them cheaper to make? And the answer is not really, mostly because the material itself that you've laminated is not water resistant. It's likely to be like a paper-backed material, and when you get moisture around the sides of that adhered to something, it's just going to break apart and it won't be water resistant. I recommend, if you're curious about whether or not something that you're making is going to be durable, whether it's going to be waterproof, is just to run your own tests. Stick it under a tap, turn it on, and see if it falls apart, see if it holds up. Stick your own stickers outside in the direct sunlight, leave them there, come back to them a week or two later, or a couple of months later, see how they still look. Do they have their colors? Are they still vibrant? Your own testing for your own stickers is super important because it's part of the process of finding out whether the materials local to you are working for you and whether you're happy with the durability of your products that you're making. One other really good question that I was asked is, when out gassing the stickers, do you need to lay them out flat one at a time, or can you stack them in a pile? I lay them out one at a time in individual drawers just because I have a lot of paper drawers that live next to my printer and I can put lots of little sheets out at a time. But I think if you give them a short period of time to outgas flat, you can probably get away with stacking them and that'll be fine. I think it's as long as they're not like really compressed together and they can breathe enough to have those gases have somewhere to go. Unlike when you apply a laminate, the plastic really suffocates the top of the sticker of the vinyl and it traps in that moisture. So I think putting them in stacks probably be fine, but I can't say for sure. I don't tend to store them that way, but most likely yes. And if you're hearing me say the word outgassing in regards to stickers and you have no idea what I'm on about, go watch my previous sticker tutorial video where I explain what the process of outgassing is and why it's extremely, extremely important in the process of making stickers at home, especially dye-based inkjet printers at home. I hope this has answered some questions you might have had about what my process is like for designing and laying out my sticker sheets. If you feel like I still haven't covered anything, please leave a comment. I'm happy to answer questions in the comments for anybody. And yeah, definitely check out my previous sticker video if you haven't. There's a lot of really valuable information there, as well as all of the materials that I use to make the stickers and tips that I have for printing, laminating, and all that good stuff. I almost forgot to mention, I'm hosting a giveaway over on Instagram at the moment, and it's super free, super easy to enter. I'll leave all the details linked below for that, but if you want to head on over there, I'm giving away a huge prize pack of stuff. I'll put some pictures up on screen of everything that's included. My new notebook delivery has arrived. There'll be 2 winners for the giveaway. There's about a week left to enter. It's being drawn on the 8th of March. So head on over to Instagram for that. And thank you so much for watching. It really means the world. And hopefully I'll see you soon.